Walter Ullrich from Fresno State, and I'm representing the California Alliance for Research for Equity in Education, along with Cynthia. I put a paper together for this meeting, and I called it Whither Goes the Common Core, a view from an equity-oriented teacher educator. And there are two parts of this paper, but I think I'll only do the first part, where I'll be critiquing the Common Core from a foundations of education course or point of view. And I'll be modeling the types of things that I do with pre-service teachers and also with practicing and graduate students in education as far as responding to the Common Core, because for a variety of reasons, teacher education is really sort of left out of the picture. And that, I think, is part of the decades-long process of trying to take teacher educations out of the university and turning them over to school systems. So what do we want schools to do for children? Most contemporary educators identify the transmission of knowledge as the primary purpose of schooling. For some, the specification of what needs to be known depends on the requirements of the workplace and the international competition for economic ascendancy. Others describe what needs to be learned in terms of conceptual knowledge of the world provided by the various intellectual disciplines. For another group of educational reformers, simply identifying what children ought to know is not sufficient. The answer to the question of what schools ought to aim at must be formulated in terms of what proficiencies students can demonstrate. According to this view, it is what students are actually able to do that counts, not the understanding that they have in their heads. Moreover, proponents of this position will say, if we are clear about what we specifically want young people to be able to do, we will be well on our way to evaluating the success of their schooling, because it is not nearly as hard to find out what people can demonstrate as it is to find out what they understand. I believe that we should reject both the formulation that emphasizes what students should know and the formulation that emphasizes what they can demonstrate, both of which are embedded in the Common Core standards and the smarter, balanced assessments. Why? Excuse me. Okay, why am I taking this position? What people know and are able to do at age 18 is important, but because we can anticipate neither the problems they will face nor the resources they will have available to them to solve in the future, these are not the most important lessons they will have learned in school. Isn't our adult concern with the next generation ultimately a concern with the kind of people they will be and with what they will or will not do? What finally determines people's character and their action is not what they can demonstrate at some earlier point or what they once understood, but one, what they can learn to do, two, what they're disposed to do, and three, and perhaps most importantly, what they care about. One reason for my emphasis on dispositions, habits of mind, intellectual virtues, character traits, quote unquote, enduring attitudes, to use John Dewey's phrase, the terminology is not important. And on the capacity to learn is that so much of the material we learn in school is forgotten. How many of us could still solve the chemistry or algebra problems we once mastered? How many could still write an informative essay about the Red Badge of Courage or the unification of Italy? Some who would fail such exercises, and I count myself among them, were successful students, and a few, like myself and others on this panel, made the pursuit of learning their vocation. The porousness of human memory is undeniable, especially for facts and ideas learned in school. This porousness itself appears, unfortunately, to be one of those things all too easily forgotten by those who write about schooling. And this certainly includes those who developed and are implementing the Common Core. Fortunately or unfortunately, not everything that we develop in school is lost. It is not the facts or the skills, but the enduring attitudes towards learning, the habits of minds that stick and become part of us. Let it be granted that what we can learn and what we're disposed to do and what we care about are of ultimate importance. Where does that take us? Let's try a thought experiment modeled on that noted philosopher John Rawls. Okay, now bear with me here. Okay. Imagine that you and I and a large number of American adults reflecting very diverse points of view and stations in life are meeting to prescribe principles for the education of our great-grandchildren. Suppose now, and this isn't hard to imagine, that we are unable to describe the precise contours of the society our great-grandchildren will inhabit or their particular place in that society. Finally, suppose we agree at the onset that our focus is to be the intellectual development of the young, broadly interpreted. In short, we are charged with the task of identifying the most essential things that we want our great-grandchildren to learn. We would want this from them no matter what part of society they come from or are destined for, no matter what their native endowment, no matter what the particular tastes and values of their parents, and no matter whether they'll be educated in conventional schools, at home, or in institutions that have not yet been invented. What would this thought experiment have to say to us here and now as we ponder ways to improve schools attended by our own and our neighbors' children, especially as we are here to critique the Common Core? The point of locating the thought experiment is this. We don't want our answer to the question, what should schools do for children, to be biased by our particular place in society or by our own children's distinctive tastes, talents, or attitudes. Nor will we achieve the perspective we need if our answers are influenced too strongly by today's newspaper headlines, television accounts, or blogs. On the other hand, by focusing on our own great-grandchildren rather than on anonymous children in the future, we concern ourselves with individuals in whose prospects we feel a stake. I believe that we, their grandparents, could agree on three key aspirations. And I use aspiration rather than goal because the latter or goal denotes a destination that is or isn't reached. Number one, our great-grandchildren should care about arguments and evidence bearing on any course of action or conclusion they are contemplating. Number two, they should be disposed to continue their own learning. And number three, to the extent possible, they should have developed the capacity to continue their learning. Why would we agree that these three aspirations are essential to a critique of the Common Core? Let me try to defend each one in order. Caring can't be reduced to a set of specific behaviors, but people who care about evidence and argument seek to find out the facts and discover what's at stake in the decisions facing them. They listen to or read what partisans of a variety of points of view have to say. Most important, they are willing to consider evidence, even when it challenges the doctrines they're most comfortable with. It is hard for us to anticipate the precise challenges our great-grandchildren will face, but we have no reason to think they will be easier than those we have faced. Few of us believe we can face our own challenges without being able to hear or read what others have thought or found out about a subject. Refusing to seek evidence and attempting to deny evidence we've been confronted with are dubious strategies, whether in our personal or our collective lives. All of us would realize that our great-grandchildren's decisions are likely to be better ones if they care about what the evidence shows concerning an issue or problem. Taking up the second and third aspirations, it is inconceivable that any of us would find tolerable the prospect that our great-grandchildren's curiosity about the world and themselves had been stifled as a result of their school experiencing, perhaps under the Common Core. Finally, the dispositions to continue learning would be without value if the capacity engaged in that learning were not developed. Most human beings are born not just with a boundless natural curiosity, but with a magnificent capacity to satisfy that curiosity, one that even the most sophisticated computer can't duplicate. Since we have no way of knowing whether our great-grandchildren will want to learn dance, mathematics, the Japanese language, ceramics, farming, computer programming, or all of these, we can only hope that their educational institutions will develop their natural capacities for learning in a variety of fields. If they follow the types of Common Core standards and the smarter balanced assessments, which are supposedly aligned with them, I do not believe that these three aspirations will be met. Thank you.